Welcome to another episode of r/MaliciousCompliance. Bank loses, customer wins. Making my landlord pay over $100,000 for freaking sink. Not entirely sure this belongs here, but I hope you have a good laugh out of it. So I'm a college student and I rent a room from a landlord and live in a house with multiple other students. The contract for my room clearly says that I have to fix all the damages to my room I have caused at my own cost, and that all the bigger issues in the house will be covered by the landlord. Well, one day I noticed that my sink is kind of clogged and it's making a weird noise. He says it's probably my own fault and get a plunger to fix the problem. A little background info about the house that I live in. All the sinks are at the top level of the house connected to the same pipe. Because of that, everyone heard the same noise. So the chance of it being my fault would be almost zero. But since I had to fix the problem on my own, I tried my best. However, you might have guessed it, but I'm not really good at this since it's not my job. I even have my dad check it since he knows more about this stuff than I do, and he says the pipe is clogged somewhere but doesn't know exactly how far down the pipe. So I tried my best to fix the problem myself, but since it's clearly a bigger issue that is not my fault, I contact my landlord once again. He still refuses to come and fix the clogged sink, even after me clearly stating that everyone is hearing this noise in the house, and tells me to solve my own problems like an adult would. Well, since I'm legally not an adult yet and having tried my best, me and the other residents of the house had decided to give up trying to fix the issue and just let it be. A month later, one person in the house had water coming out of her sink, because it completely clogged, and within days everyone was having the same issue. Because now everyone was complaining to the landlord, he had to fix the problem, since it was a bigger problem within the house that everyone was experiencing. Not only did he have to fix the clogged pipe of all the sinks, but he also had to fix the water damage that we all had in our rooms because the water would just come out of the sink. When he finally decided to hire someone to fix the problem, the costs were already up to $100,000 and probably will be even more since some of the other people living within the house have sued the landlord for not agreeing to the contract and for neglect of his basic duties as landlord. He even called us and screamed at us why we didn't mention the problem earlier, to which I replied that I tried to solve the problem as an adult by informing my landlord who was supposed to fix it, but that this clearly didn't help. Oopsie, we need water to kill the fire to the landlord, that's why it's better to fix the problem when it's small. Negligence at its finest. Entitled kid gets us suspended for a week. Okay, I work on elevators, and was, at this time, an apprentice working on service jobs with a mechanic. We'll call him Rick. Now Rick was a really nice guy, we got along really well, but he had a bit of a short fuse. Thrown tools were fairly normal if he got frustrated. Anyways, we were working on an elevator with the machinery in the basement, and some of it was only accessible from the elevator pit. We took all the steps we normally would, put signs on the walls over the buttons saying that the elevator was out of service, barricaded our work area at the bottom floor, shut the elevator down and went to work. Now, this elevator had the buttons and doors on the same circuit as the cab lights. Which is very unusual for elevators, and we hadn't turned the light switch off because, well, we wanted the lights. Entitled mom, never found out her name, now comes into play. I'm working in the elevator pit, and I hear the elevator doors open, and then hear the mom step in, and the loud noise of the buttons in the cab being hammered. This quickly turned into her banging, and then kicking the doors and screaming for help. This progression took less time than it would have taken for me to get a word in edgewise. I, being the nice guy I am, yelled up to her to press the door open button, but, as the sign sheet had to move to press the button, said the elevator was out of order. A few confused sounding seconds later, the doors open and the mom exits. I'm thinking, okay, no big deal, situation over. Nope. The mom storms down the stairs, pretty fast I'll admit, and starts pounding on the bottom door where we've barricaded off our area. So she's already inside a barrier that's very much there for her safety, and she's screaming at me that I trapped her in the elevator and I need to turn it on now because her baby was on the 4th floor in her stroller and needed to come downstairs to go to an appointment. Now, Rick and I are, as I've said, pretty nice guys, and if she'd come and asked politely when the elevator would be fixed, he'd probably have sent me to go help her. Hey, I'm the apprentice, that's the breaks, but I'd happily go and give a hand. Today would be different. I stayed where I was, because frankly, she can't get to me so she can have her tantrum. Then Rick arrived. She saw him, in his elevator company shirt, and went off that I had trapped her, and the elevator fell, and her baby was in the hallway and needed to come down right now, so we better get the elevator turned on right now. Now Rick is also very smart, and has been doing service for many years. He calmly tells her we can't just turn it on, we have to complete the repairs for safety reasons. The mom goes off again, losing her mind at Rick before using the classic entitled mom phrase. "I want to speak to your supervisor." Rick is prepared for this. You see, Rick is technically his own supervisor, and his business cards say service supervisor on them. So he hands her his own card, and walks outside to the van. Of course she calls him, tells a story that almost resembles what actually happened, which is the last straw for Rick. Don't freaking lie to Rick. So he maintains his composure, and tells her that our behavior was unacceptable, and that he would be suspending us for a week without pay. After a few minutes he came in, knocked on the door where I was waiting, so I opened it up. He leaned down and whispered, "Pack up and act angry." So I played along, packed up the tools and carried them to the van, straight past the mom still fuming in the hall. On the way out she asked Rick what was going on and when the elevator would be back on. Rick looked at her, deadpan, and said, "Well, I just got suspended for a week, and I'm the only one who can do this job, so in about a week." A week later we returned and flipped the switch. I had finished while we were waiting for her tantrum to subside. That's what you get for having an attitude, and by the way, why would you leave your baby on the top floor? A lot can happen, you know. Bank selectively enforces rules, loses business and money. So this is my dad's story rather than mine, but I felt it might amuse some and is probably the only time in his nearly 70 years that he has done something like this. TLDR at bottom for the impatient among you. Also not sure if it's fully malicious compliance, or one of the levels of revenge, so sorry if I chose wrong. In the 1970s, with the UK suffering a recession and work hard to come by, my then childless dad had an opportunity to move to Dubai to work. My mum was able to go with him. They'd have accommodation provided, a good income, higher than the UK equivalent would have been, and were able to fly over and check everything out before committing. All in all, a great opportunity. They took the plunge, and decided as they had no accommodation costs in Dubai, they would keep paying the mortgage on their UK house so it would be available to them when they returned. My parents had a UK current account with one bank, let's call them Goodish, but their mortgage and savings account are with a different bank, let's call them Muppets. Every month Dad's salary was paid into his current account with Goodish, and he then phoned them to ask them to move money into his savings account with Muppets, as this is the account his mortgage payment came from. He never had any problems. One day, Mum writes a check from the Goodish account, then later realizes the account will not have sufficient funds to cover it. No problem, thought Dad, I'll give Muppets a call and ask them to move some back out of the savings. Unfortunately, Muppets didn't want to transfer money out of their account, and so informed Dad that the only way he can remove money from that account is in branch, in person, using his savings book. Now, Muppets didn't have a Dubai branch in the 70s, the only way he could comply would be to travel 3,500 miles home. Frustrated at their repeated refusal to help, Dad resolves the immediate check issue another way, and looks at when he'll next be in the UK. Fast forward a couple of months and Dad is back in the UK. Armed with his little savings book, he strolls into his local branch of Muppets and asks for confirmation of his savings balance, and mortgage balance. He then hands over the mandatory savings book and requests to withdraw the full savings account balance in cash. Dad then pays off the outstanding mortgage in full, and asks for an envelope for the excess. Dad then closes the savings account, walks to Goodish, and deposits the remaining savings. Bank manager tried to stop this happening, but once Dad pointed out that he technically isn't able to transfer money into his savings account without using the savings book, he'd have no way to pay the mortgage. The mortgage itself had no restriction on early repayment, and thus he could do what he liked with his own money. That was a smart move for the father. I wonder if that law still applies to this day. TLDR. Bank picks and chooses when to enforce rules, forcing my dad to fly 3,500 miles to resolve. In response, Dad closes all accounts costing bank thousands in interest etc. in the middle of a recession. Some might take the view that the bank were happy, they got a full mortgage repaid early. You may well be right, but from what I was told they absolutely weren't. Either way, I'm sure we've all dreamt of being able to do similar and give two fingers to the institutions who usually have us over a barrel. I think it was a win-win situation. I don't know much when it comes to bank laws. Thank you for watching. Please watch this video for the meantime, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you on my next video.